Hi, everyone. Welcome to our virtual summit, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Ricky Blackwell, and I'm super proud to kick off this panel. I'm the Director of Sales Operations and Customer Success at eDynamic Learning, and with me today are four great panelists who have extensive experience on this exciting topic: a virtual program, how to support long-term, short-term, summer, homeschool students, etc. First on our panel today is Holly Brisky, who is the Supervisor of Online Learning at the Capital Area Intermediate Unit. She oversees the Capital Area Online Learning Association. It's a statewide online learning program for 125 school districts, programs, and schools in Pennsylvania. Holly has been in education for 24 years in the roles of teacher, curriculum director, principal, and supervisor in traditional and cyber schools. Holly has spent the past 17 years dedicated to online learning and merging her passion for education and technology.
Hello.
Also today we have panelist Ted Robinson, who is the K-12 Partnership Director for Proximity Learning. Ted has over 40 years of success working in the K-12 education arena. He was Vice President of one of the first online companies, Advanced Academics. Based in Oklahoma City, he was Vice President of Sales and Partnerships for Kaplan K-12 Learning Services, where he was charged with moving the company into metro markets and developing partnerships with federal agencies and additional K-12 education partners to enhance Kaplan's strong brand.
Good morning, everyone. Looking forward to this panel.
Our third panelist today is Benjamin Barnett, a virtual instructor who has been working in education for 15 years as a secondary principal, a teacher, a trainer, and a consultant. He spent a decade teaching in Chile, Guatemala, Mexico, Abu Dhabi, and as a principal in Cambodia, developing new programs and expanding current offerings based off local requirements and student interest. He currently works as a Spanish lead teacher for proximity learning, as well as teaching asynchronous courses virtually for eDynamic learning, including cybersecurity, biotechnology, applied engineering, forensic science, and many more. And our fourth panelist today is Doug Arnold, who has spent 21 years as an educator. Currently, he is the director of the online program at Rockdale Virtual Campus in Georgia and developed Rockdale County's first computer-aided instructional delivery model in 2003 using all open source tools. He's also taught computer programming, media production, information systems, and cybersecurity. So thank you to all of you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Now, you bet. Many of you provided questions when you registered for this panel, so we're going to start with those questions first. So with many of you on the line today, we're going to keep you muted, but feel free to ask any additional questions in the chat panel on the GoToWebinar window, and we'll do our best to get to your questions afterwards. If we don't have time to address them all, we'll be sure to follow up and provide you with your answers. So let's go ahead and kick off with our first question. Holly, this one's for you. What are the benefits to a district, school, or program for offering online learning options?
Well, reasons why districts or schools or LEAs would want to offer virtual programs are several. One, it allows for some equity. I work with some districts that are rural and smaller, and they're not able to offer the breadth and depth of course catalogs that some of the larger schools that receive more money can. So it creates an equality among students. We have students that suddenly can take some foreign language classes online beyond the traditional Spanish and French, but maybe Chinese or Russian, as well as like a lot of electives and computer courses. It also gives students the flexibility. We have some students that just need some flexibility within their workday, that they may not be able to fit all of their courses online or traditional courses in a day, so they can take some classes online. And it also gives students some flexibility in that maybe traditional learning isn't quite the right fit for them, so they can take their classes online, still remain with the district, and get a lot more opportunities than they may have had before.
Ricky, I think you might be on mute.
I was gonna say, you want me to keep talking? Because I can.
I was on mute. All right. Thank you, Holly, for that answer.
Sure.
Ted, this question is for you. How do we introduce virtual education to parents?
Great question. Thank you very much, Ricky. I have several clients that I've implemented virtual schools over the last several years. With the different learning modalities that we've faced in many urban and rural districts, basically we have done it, or myself personally, is going to PTA meetings or parent teacher faculty meetings, also via email, via text, being postcards, and offering those parents additional opportunities and options for their respective children, especially in the areas I work with on the South, primarily the southern states, where many of them are disenfranchised and they don't have those opportunities. So I've been going to churches and speaking in churches across the South and letting them know that these opportunities are available to their students, especially since industry and tech now are moving to states like Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi. And I'm an evangelist for this kind of learning because it levels the playing field, as Holly said, offers the equity piece and making sure that their students have an opportunity to be able to participate in the 21st century economy.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's great. Benjamin, the next question is for you. As an instructor, how do you keep students motivated in long-term classes?
Oh, good question. That can be pretty tricky. There are a lot of different ways, and it really depends on the student situation, I think. Obviously, the ways that we communicate are primarily email, but there have been many different ways that we can communicate. You know, the partnership between Proximity, who I work for, and eDynamics means that we're set up for Zoom meetings when we need to. We don't do live teaching necessarily, but every once in a while, it is necessary to get on and maybe walk somebody through some coding steps, for example. That gets tricky, or maybe someone just needs to figure out some things, whether it be the facilitator at a campus or some students. I've noticed the most success when students are motivated from their schools. You know, like if the school set a certain pace that they need to accomplish for their grades, when they don't necessarily grade them. You know, there's many different ways to do this, but when they don't necessarily grade them according to the grade in the course, but they grade them according to their pace, I've noticed that they tend to stay on track more. But when students have different situations, like maybe they're homeschooled or they're taking a course for their own benefit, you know, I had some students pay for coding out of their own pocket, actually, just because they wanted to learn it. It's really helpful if I'm made aware of that ahead of time, and then we can set up a plan to stay on task, and I can check in with them knowing that they're not exactly in a school environment. So for me, it's helpful to know, and then we can work individually to make that happen.
Wonderful. Thanks for that answer. Doug, this question is for you. How do you work with schools to offer accelerated options to their students?
Again, just like some of the other panelists had mentioned, it's really all about options and opportunities and that equity piece. We're in a Metro Atlanta area, but we've got a lot of have and have nots in the digital world in our district. And so we've got courses that are perhaps offered at one school and not at another school. And one of the missions that we have really grown with is that we like to say, okay, if we have five students at this school, 10 students at this school, 3 students at this school, we can make a class happen, and we can scale to whatever need is present at the home high schools, as we call them. And we're a program within our district that supports the mission of all of the traditional high schools and programs as well.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's head back over to Holly. Obviously, you've been involved with online learning for quite a while. How does the school get started with offering an online option, and what should we be thinking about first if this is something we're trying to implement?
So the first thing that you're going to want to think about if you're a school district, and especially for the fall, because there's a lot of unknowns, is what problem are you trying to solve? You know, why are you looking for virtual? And it's not that virtual is a solution, but what is making you look in this direction? And or are you wanting to increase your students with more opportunities, which is a problem you're trying to solve? And then from there, look at how can we solve it? I recommend that you look at several curriculum providers. Maybe you're wanting to create blended learning opportunities in a specific grade span. Maybe it's elementary, middle, high school. Vet out lots of curriculum companies to look at what fits your need. There's a lot of them out there. And there's a lot of them that are really good at niche areas. eDynamic is fantastic with the electives and the career tech ed solutions. I'm going to put a plug in there, but I don't think there's anybody that does it better than they do. So, but vet that out and make sure you're comfortable. And then also get stakeholders involved. If this is a top-down decision, it's going to be hard to implement. You're going to need to involve your teachers. If you're a union state, involve the union, have them come to discussion. The biggest fear that I always hear from districts or LEAs that are looking in this idea is, we're going to lay off all these teachers, and the teachers get really worked up and have some anxiety thinking that online learning is replacing them. And in all the years I've been in this, I've never seen a teacher laid off because the school decided to offer some virtual education, ever. It's an unfounded fear, but get them involved at the beginning. Get your parents involved, your school board, so it's a whole cultural change and idea, so that when it's implemented, it can be implemented more smoothly. The curriculum providers you choose, if they're quality, they should be helping you walk through the next processes of which teachers would be good online learners. Do we want to go fully virtual? Do we want to do blended? And they'll hold your hand and walk you through those processes and help you make those key decisions. I also caution the uphill climb to implementing a virtual, no matter how small or big, it's a steep mountain. You're going to get your pickaxe out and your hiking shoes, and you're going to be climbing that for a good 6 months, and then it'll get a little bit easier. There's a lot learning curve, and that creates some anxiety. So that's why I say involve your community as much as possible, that they know there's going to be a learning curve. Technology is going to fail at times. Things are going to go down, and this is a learning experience, and in the end, you're all going to come out better. And just have an open mind. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. Online learning isn't a one-size-fits-all, and it's not a band-aid that fixes integral problems. It is a tool that can create new opportunities for students and also change some students' lives. So just have this bigger understanding that if you go in it thinking we're solving this problem, make sure you realize that there's more opportunities that online learning could address as well.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Ted, this question's for you. How do we handle students with special needs in a virtual environment?
Yeah, it depends on the special need and the level of special need that's needed. And proximity learning, also we handle that. We probably work with special education as well as kids that need speech pathology help. And we have to work very closely with the district and the parent. We can assist with the IEPs and working with them, but we have to be very judicious in whom we take in those particular components. Most of the kids who have autism or kids who have difficulty with behaviors, we can do those. But those kids that need the additional help, that's really, in my personal opinion, is not a virtual component. It still needs to be that 1-to-5 ratio or 1-to-2 ratio, depending on the school district that I'm working in. But proximity learning does do special ed. We've done it in several districts in Southern California, especially in the northern Los Angeles area. I'm about to do it now in one of my districts that I have in northern Louisiana, where we'll be handling their special ed. So we do the IEPs. We help with basically guiding the aides that are in the classroom, because the teacher of record will be the proximity learning teacher, which Benjamin is very intimate with. And then we basically guide the aides based on the documentation that we have for each one of the students.
Great. Love that we can still individualize the learning for the students.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
Yeah, and like Ted was saying, he's more in depth in a lot of that stuff. But as a virtual teacher, the communication between the teacher on campus or somebody, whoever's representing that student on campus, and the virtual teacher is very important, because many times a student may ask for a retake on a quiz, and maybe we don't normally do that, but obviously if it's in their IEP, then we'll do that without any questions. But we just have to be aware. Normally it's not an issue, but communication is very, very important in that regard.
I'm glad you said that, Benjamin, because it minimizes the angst for that particular student if it's already in their IEP to have that extra 15 or 20 minutes to complete their assignments.
Great. Thanks for both your input on that. So Benjamin, in talking with that, saying that communication is so important, which communication methods do you use for staying in touch with the students outside of email or Zoom? Is there any other platforms that you use or assist to staying in communication with the observers and students?
If they don't turn anything in within about 30 days, I go knock on their front door. No. I do basically everything but that, though. Yeah, the email is very important, and you mentioned that, but it's also it's important to know who to contact about that student, because you have many students that, for whatever reason, don't log in at all, and so emailing that student is not going to help. So you need to know who to go to help that person. So a lot of times, if I haven't heard from them, I'll reach out to some other people, and it's really helpful when those people from the district have reached out to me, and then I can give them a call. People are really good about answering those calls. Yeah, Zoom, phone, just about everything. If I have somebody's number to text, I can do that too. Yeah, just being able to communicate early and often is helpful.
I've also noticed, as one of our instructors for our asynchronous teaching, that you communicate within the learning management system quite a bit as well, with announcements and notices to the students. So
yes, I just realized I forgot to say that. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, there's definitely the weekly announcements are helpful. There's ways to make that efficient, and sometimes there's not a lot to say other than if you started at the beginning of year, you should be about this place in the course. Of course, people can join the courses anytime, so that's not always 100% accurate, but it gives them an idea of where they should be, and it just gives them another chance to contact you if they need any help, and I always encourage that.
Benjamin, would you take a minute and talk about the paraprofessional in the classroom that you work with and how important they are to you and helping students?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so you're talking about the live proximity courses, right?
That's correct.
Oh yeah, that's very, very important. If you can have a way to contact the TA ahead of the class, you can really set some expectations about how they envision the class. You can get an idea of what the students are dealing with in their school. It might be an urban school where there's a high level of security and the students feel a certain way about that, or it could be a very a rural school where everything's fine. They're just there to learn, and they don't deal with any significant issues outside of school. So it's important to touch base. It's important to know what they're dealing with. And if you have someone, proximity trains them all ahead of time, but people are different. I've had, even within the same school, teaching Spanish, I've had very, very different TAs. Some are willing to work with the student, give them a lot of time, and some are really on top of it. And I had an interesting thing where one, it was when I first started teaching in proximity. I thought, okay, well this school teaches this one way, and then I started teaching another class at the same school with a different TA, and she was always mad at me. And this went on for about 2 or 3 weeks, and finally I said, hey, why don't we schedule another phone call and just maybe see what's going on. It seemed like she was always mad at me, but the problem was she really had her class whipped into shape, and I was going too slow, right? And so what I thought I was accommodating the students, but in reality, she said, no, these students, they don't have any problems. I need you to teach. Like, don't give them so much time. Teach. And you know what? I needed that encouragement. I'll call it that. It was more like a kick in the seat of the pants, but it was really, really helpful, because I realized, okay, just because somebody presents a group of students a certain way doesn't mean that they can't be motivated by the right person. So definitely communicating with the TA and making sure that they're available to talk with, and that they're flexible in what they try to do and how they try to help you is very important as well.
Can I say something on that too? I think Ted and Ben really drove home a good point about when schools are thinking of virtual programs. It is a very hand-in-hand process with the company that you work with, and such as proximity. They're employing teachers, and the school district also has teachers, and it's so key in having that communication back and forth of how to best support the student, and not just for special ed, but for ESL students as well. I see a lot of schools just kind of build up a wall like, oh, they're out there, these teachers are out there somewhere, and they don't make that communication connection. And these online learners are actually lucky that they have this whole group of educators surrounding them trying to help them be successful. But I caution school districts, keep that communication line open and talk to the online instructors, if they're purchasing online instructors. Talk it out, work it out, and work on what's best for the students, because some of the teachers see the students face to face, and then others are only seeing them online, and the two come together can really create a more holistic approach to educating that student.
Great points. Thanks, guys. Doug, here's a question for you. How do you help schools and families save money?
Okay, one of the things that we've done, and again, we probably function a lot differently than Proximity or other vendors, because we're a program within the school district itself. And so all of our curriculum, actually, eDynamic is the only outside curriculum that we use. Everything else we've developed in-house. So we've created everything from scratch from our subject matter experts that are in our district. And one of the ways we've positioned ourselves is we don't have any full-time teachers. All of our teachers are adjuncts. And so we hire master teachers within the district to teach for Rockdale Virtual. It's above and beyond the school day. And so we get a lot of, we get a line item in the budget in order to pay the instructors a fee per student. So if we have a teacher who, if they agree to teach 2 students, the class makes. Sometimes they may teach 30 or 40 students. It really depends on the course, the need. Again, we can scale up and scale down on a semester by semester basis. The way that we save the district money and school systems, systems outside of our district in a regional way, is that we actually, because we're a line item on a budget, we save a lot of the, we don't have full-time instructors. So the traditional point system that a lot of districts use to allocate funds, FTE funds for schools, traditional schools, we fall outside of that. And so if a student wants to take a course with us, it's free of charge if it falls within the school day. If it's above and beyond the school day, then we have a tuition-based system that comes into play. But many times we've differentiated ourselves between remediation and acceleration. And so our program is really about acceleration. And a lot of students are wanting to open up their schedules for everything from work-based learning to apprenticeships to taking multiple pathways through our career academy, graduating early in certain circumstances. So those options that they have are really, we allow students to do that. And saving money for the district was a good way for us to position ourselves and really gain relevance within the district and be a support system within the district as well. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, and I think that definitely helped. Any comments from the panelists on that?
I think it's great that you're giving your teachers an opportunity to make some extra money. Yeah.
They like it too.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania, we're a cyber charter state, and we're actually the state in the nation has the most cyber charter schools. So the program that I help school districts run is a fraction of the cost of what a cyber charter school is charging districts. And it all comes down to some kooky money flowing that our government set up in Pennsylvania. And it's being debated at this moment of how that's going to go forward. But we're saving districts when a student leaves for a cyber charter, the money follows the student. But what the cyber charter is charging is a lot higher rate than what we're able to do. So our program's saving districts millions of dollars right now, and that's kind of the fight that we've took on, is let's keep the kids in the district, but they can still be online virtual fully or part. And in our program, half the kids that we educate are actually doing just part-time learning, which means it fit a niche in their life that they might not have had that opportunity to have.
Where I
Right.
work,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, good, Doug.
No, I was just going to say we don't have any full-time students. We are all of our students are taking specific classes for different reasons, pathway completion and things like that. So we don't have any full-time students. So
My
that makes
plans
us a little bit different.
was basically to stave off the proliferation of charter schools in their respective states or communities. For example, in Arizona, you know what's taking place in Arizona, but now that I'm working in Louisiana, you have all the large charter movements there. And so basically this is a way for the district to keep their students, repatriate some of their students to get back into the school district because of the extra additional offerings that eDynamics has. Not every kid is bound for college going to LSU or
Right.
Southern. And so the CTE courses that I'm now offering in the virtual component has proliferated. And we have, and I'll talk about that a little bit later if we go through the panel here. Those are the kinds of courses that those students are interested in addition to their core content. So basically for us is to keep that revenue within the district.
Right. Yep.
Absolutely.
Great. Holly, let's go back to you. If I want to offer students online options, what should I be considering? What's the first thing I should be looking for when considering offering online learning options?
That is a big question.
There is no first thing.
Well, I'm getting there. I had to think of that. I had to think it through. The first thing that you should be considering is the quality of the content being offered. I am always I've said it for years, you get what you pay for. And so that's going back to my earlier comment of vet out courses, vet out curriculum providers to make sure the quality is there. Is it aligned to your state standards? Is it aligned in Pennsylvania? We have Pennsylvania Common Core. Is it aligned to that? Is it aligned to Common Core? So first, how well does it teach the state standards? And does it do it in a manner that you feel comfortable with? So that would be the first area. And then I would also look at, and these kind of like our linear, ease of communication with students, ease of transparency in grades, ease of transparency in progress. So how easily, when you're looking at this online curriculum, can you manage student grades? Can you tell if they're on pace? Can you tell when they first logged in? All these little details are huge when it comes to managing a program. And if it's complicated, it's going to be more challenging to manage an online program. And as well as just flexibility in the curriculum. Some companies I know are very rigid in their offerings and it can only be this way. Others are a lot more fluid. So it goes back to like figuring out what your vision is for your school and then which curriculum provider fits that. But the quality by far is the first thing you should be looking at. And you have to look at several vendors to be able to determine quality. If you go just to one vendor and say, oh, that's it, we're sold, you're selling your school short because you don't know. And there's a lot of vendors out there that are really good at showing you one course that's the best course, but the rest don't necessarily look like that. So you really have to do your due diligence and look for the quality and then look at the price point that will fit in your budget.
Great. Ted, this question's for you. Obviously working in a virtual education environment, sometimes we hear that they don't have the resources for a computer and connectivity. So how can a child participate in a virtual program if that's the case?
Excellent question. And again, I revert back to where my passion is primarily in the South. I don't have that difficulty here in Southern California where most of the municipalities pass out Chromebooks and they have connectivity. One of the things that proximity learning does, especially with our clients that we're working with in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, sometimes there's not even connectivity within that particular parish or the county that we're working in. Advanced academics offers students who don't have the equipment, we offer them a Chromebook. If they do not have connectivity, we offer the actual MiFi component that goes along with it so they can participate and go to school. Now we have some parameters under how that operates. So in case all of a sudden that thing, it happens to disappear, the Chromebook, that means we hold their grades and we do other things to them, but proximity learning does provide that particular component. And what we do, we take a percentage of the ADA to make sure we cover those costs as well as to cover the cost of our fine teachers like Benjamin, as well as the paraprofessional we're doing. I want to go back to something that Holly had mentioned about helping the students participate in online learning. Not every student is a good virtual student. If they've had difficulty in the brick and mortar, some of them are going to have difficulty here in the virtual component. So at proximity learning, we take their transcripts first, we go through them, We have our own registrar that looks at all those grades, and we work with the counselor that the district lets us work with. And so we go through all of those grades, all of that component, and we let the district have the right to say yes or no on whatever student they want to take, because there's conditions. If a student does not do well within the virtual component, they're still obligated to the state for their state, grades that they're going to have. So we make sure that we put all these pieces in place and make sure that they're going to try to get the best student possible to participate in their virtual component.
Yeah, online learning isn't for every student, and traditional learning isn't for every student. And we are so lucky that we now can offer both options and find the right fit. It's the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely meeting the needs of the students is great that we have options for them for sure.
Yeah.
And providing them the technology and the connectivity. I think many schools experience that as a challenge in the last 8 weeks with what we're all going through right now. So very real. I'm glad that you guys have a solution for your students. That's fantastic. Benjamin, here's one for you. How do you make sure that students are staying on pace in their virtual classes when you're teaching them remotely or asynchronously?
I find that spending a lot of time making sure that they understand the technology really pays off in the end. With eDynamic, the software that most of the classes use, which is the Buzz portal, it's not difficult to use necessarily, but if you're just coming into it, there are certain things that students have to learn how to do. One of the key ones I deal with a lot is properly submitting a Google Doc. And so that it's very important to me, even though it's a little bit of a headache. I mean, what teacher hasn't had a headache before? But just take the time to explain to the students, leaving comments in their assignments on how to properly do things. If they haven't done it correctly, if they haven't gotten a 100 on that assignment, then I explain. If it's a technology issue, well, it's easy because I can just cut and paste the same steps that I put there. And then, most of the time that solves the issue. And then, you know what? I mean, after the first 6 weeks or so, I have very few problems with technology. And then the students, now they've dealt with you, now they know you, they can see that you're a reasonable person, and they can come to you with content questions, which of course is the whole point of the course, is the content. Yeah, so I feel like that's one of the more important things. And I can always tell the students who have waited until the end to catch up on their assignments, because they're making the mistakes that I taught everybody else in the first 6 weeks. They're not submitting their Google Docs properly, and I can't see it. Things like that. But also, we have the tools on the teacher side to see when assignments are due according to the pacing that is laid out. That is not a hard and fast rule. They're not getting late grades for that necessarily. But that way we can see who's on pace, who has a low average, who has a high average, and we can send out messages, blanket messages, really just saying, please have a look at your schedule and look at that, or we can reach out individually. So I use a mixture of all of those, and if I'm not getting a response from people, I can reach out to their, sorry, I forget what it's called, the person in charge of them, right? There's a whole list of emails for each student, and I can reach out to those people to try to get a response.
Great.
Obviously, sorry, I wanted to add, if I'm teaching a live course, like with proximity, I keep focusing on eDynamics because the async courses, because that's who is sponsoring this. But with the proximity courses that are live, obviously I can talk to that student live. Usually if I have something to say about their grades, I'll try to put them in a breakout session if that's not going to cause too much of an uproar in the class. Some students you can't check out for a few minutes, but that way, I mean, that's easier. I'm going to see them on a daily basis, or I can deal with somebody who has them in a classroom. But for async, we have to be a little more creative.
Great. Doug, this question is for you. You previously mentioned that you don't have any full-time enrollment students. So what types of courses are you offering in your program that aren't typically taught in a brick and mortar school?
What we try to do on a semester to semester basis is we do a needs analysis working with the principals, And what we found over the years is that a lot of the specialty courses, and think of classes like AP Computer Science or AP Psychology, and some of the career tech classes as well too. Although we have a career academy, some of the courses are just full and they don't have the space in their schedule, or it just doesn't work for them to come to the facility during the time period, the only time period that it may be offered. So that's where we step in and bring a lot of options at the table, because they can fit that class in any period. It doesn't matter if it's first period, second period, third period, to us, because it can fit anywhere there's an opening for that student. And so those specialty classes that, again, you might only have a handful of students at any particular school, but speaking to equity again, we can take a few students here, a few students here, and all of a sudden we've got a full course ready to go. And no matter where that particular family might live in our district, they still have the same opportunities that every student has. And that's very important as part of our mission.
Great. Anything to add from you, Holly, Ted, or Benjamin about courses that you offer that might be unique or interesting for the students?
Well, I think all of the courses we offer are interesting to students, so, especially the eDynamic. But no, I think, as we've been saying, that career pathway is so key, and that cultural change that we have to make, that college isn't the only means to success. It is one means of success. There's also going straight into the workforce and earning a living that is very valid. And I just wish we could change that cultural shift to that. But
Yes.
yeah, I'll be quiet.
So in all of your programs that you offer, you are supporting students who are taking virtual courses long-term, some that are coming in for a short-term situation. Obviously, summer school or summer environments can be hosted virtually as well. And then our homeschool students, do you guys see a lot of homeschool attendees through your virtual programs, or is it all district enrolled students?
I'm starting to see homeschoolers in the South in particular, especially in the rural part of the state, where a parent cannot teach algebra or biology or chemistry. So we're doing a lot of the science and higher end mathematics for the homeschoolers. We're also repatriating for some of the students who hadn't aged out of the system that need 2 or 3 credits. They're coming back. Pregnant teens who had to drop out first or second semester, they're coming back into the district and we're ready to offer that. In addition, one of my clients actually brought back the 13 students that they expelled. And so out of the 13, 8 were at least able to move forward and get their graduation certificate last year to move forward. So most of my clients are opening up to anybody in the community that wants to put forth the effort to be educated.
We're re-engaging a lot of the homeschool community as well, because students who come, their parents may not want them to be in that traditional school that they're zoned to for a variety of reasons, but they can take courses with us, also in conjunction with dual enrollment and perhaps a pathway at the Career Academy. And with that, they've got a full schedule, but it's not necessarily tracked to that home traditional high school that they are kind of quote unquote forced to go to. And they can take part, though, in any extracurricular activity. So if it's prom, graduation, obviously is going to be from the homeschool. If they're in the band, on the football team, things like that, because they're in the district, they can take part in those things. And we've seen a lot of homeschoolers re-engage us for that reason.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania, because we have all these lots of cyber charter schools, the homeschool families that are the true traditional homeschool families tend not to do either. They're either already in cyber charters, which we're trying to get them back, or they're homeschool and are just anti things. I'll leave it at that. Some of our schools have started digging into seeing if they can bring their homeschool population back in, but there's also there's some other populations that, when I say telling schools broaden their thinking, we have adjudicated youth. We have some youth that are in, prisons that are learning online so they can get their high school diploma instead of a GED. We are helping students that are in inpatient or daily inpatient facilities so that while they're getting treatment, their education isn't on the side or they're just doing worksheets. So there's just these neat little niche opportunities that schools sometimes don't think of how to serve. And talking about those expelled students, that is key because I'm not sure how other states, but when we have students that are expelled, they're sent somewhere at the school's expense to continue being educated. And now they can still stay with the district, but learn online, and maybe they can't come into the building for whatever they did. So it just opens up a lot of opportunities, but I'm hoping we tap into the homeschool market soon. I think my schools that we work with are focused on trying to get the cyber kids back into the district. And then they're like, oh, then we'll look at homeschool. So we're a little behind on that part, but we just have this big competition with cyber charters right now.
That's interesting. One of my unique clients I have in Southern California, which is a private school, which is landlocked. So they've got buildings that they're set at 450, incorporated using proximity learning to recruit students from the newer communities that have been developed over the last 5 years. So they've gone from 450 to 800. Their kids are not on campus, but as Doug alluded to, they come for football, all the sports, cheerleading, drama, music. The school never had a golf or tennis team. Well, now they have a CIF championship golf and tennis team, because they were to recruit those kids from those new communities that have just been developed.
Oh, great opportunities for sure. I'm going to go back to Ted with this question. This is from our attendees right now. So how do you ensure equity with respect to the internet access in low socioeconomic environments with respect to internet access, and that knowing that the hotspots face data limits? How do you get over that challenge?
That's a great question. And, I'll just be as candid as I possibly can. There's some places we just can't work in, and we let them know that. So in some of the areas that we're working in, again, I point back to Northern Louisiana, we try to find them if they have transportation to go to specific school districts or particular locations where they can work, whether that be if they do have a restaurant that has a hot spot that they could utilize, we'll do that. But some students, that's the first question that we ask when we start the recruitment process. Do you have connectivity? If they don't, do you have at least Verizon or one of the internet providers within your community? If they do, then we can give the MiFi for them to be successful with. But unfortunately, there's just some places we just can't work. And so that has happened before. So to address that, the question from the individual, it depends on the location of the individual, what the resources are surrounding them, that they can get some connectivity.
I have very high hopes that what we're facing in the nation with schools being forced to close will force the efforts to make connectivity across the nation. And a lot of it comes down to the internet providers. And I feel that it's, I'm going to get my talking shoes on here, but it's unacceptable to not have every student have internet access. So I'm hoping that this change in what's happened will force some changes with the internet providers so that students have access. But it's challenging.
It is. And I agree. In Mississippi yesterday, their state superintendent of education, the governor has allotted her a specific amount of money to encourage to do the whole state. The whole state would have connectivity, because that's where they're so rural. And I won't mention some of the places I've worked in, but it's very difficult, and it's sometimes discouraging when you go to those schools to try to help them and assist them, and they have a computer, or they don't even have the basics that you see in some higher end municipalities or even middle municipalities. They can do things we take for granted. Here I take for granted in most cases, but Mississippi is now on that tack to be able to offer connectivity for every student in the state.
Yeah, it's unacceptable that it's 2020 and we're still having connectivity issues. It really is.
Yeah. Well, what we found that during this time period that we've been having to work from home and school from home, we have families that do have internet access, but it's not the highest quality. Yeah. And so you've got mom on a computer, dad on a computer, and 3 siblings all trying to take classes or work at the exact same time. And there's buffering issues, and there's all sorts of issues that are going on. And so we've had to get our teachers to stagger times that they're actually engaging with the students. Just a lot of things that were unintended consequences of what we're having to deal with right now. I think that'll continue.
Also, I think an issue is when in this particular, these last couple months, we've had to learn at home, and I have 4 children, so
Yeah,
we had enough devices, but they weren't all the newest devices, you know, because I'm not a device crazy person. So I said, all right, 5-year-old, you know, you get the one that's the easiest to manage, and you know, we went down the line from there. But when you're having to figure out the tech side from the district, right? They're saying, okay, we're going to use Zoom. Never mind, we changed our mind. We're going to use WebEx. Never mind, it's been 5 different programs. Anyway,
Right.
don't get me started. But but when you're having to do that on different operating systems with different ages and everything, a big discussion point in the local school district here has been doing a one-to-one iPad program next year, at least for elementary students, just to completely eliminate that. And then, like Holly said, get the internet providers on board to provide some low cost or whatever, you know, options so that everybody has connectivity.
Yeah, this situation really brought to light that challenge. It is glaring, and it is something every district's trying to solve. All of us are, but I think that's the biggest. I'm hopeful this is the best change that could come of all these things we've gone through, is that we're going to get equity and internet connectivity for sure. I'm hoping.
We'll see.
I know. I don't have that kind of superpower yet, but you know.
Great, thanks for all your input on that. Definitely, it was in our face, very obvious that not all students had accessibility or equity to internet during this time, and it's an eye-opener for educators and decision makers that we need to make sure that we're prepared for situations like this in the future to ensure there's no interruption in our students' learning. So this is another question in from the attendees. In regards to monitoring students, do you use Lightspeed to monitor your students, or what types of tools and strategies? I guess that'd be a good one for you, Benjamin, or maybe even you, Doug, as far as monitoring students.
Go ahead, Benjamin.
Sorry, I was muted. I had to find the button again. Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what Lightspeed is, but the different ways that we have of monitoring students. You know, when we're teaching live, you know, we can look at the chat, we can save the chat, we can record the session, so we can always go back, and if there was a problem, we're able to try to resolve that issue quickly, and then maybe address the underlying issue later with a school administration or whatever. I think that there's probably, maybe Ted could speak to this, there's probably something in the background that is being observed. I know that they have access to seeing more aspects of Zoom than we can see, and also within Canvas. Sorry, that's all I have to add on that.
We monitor our teachers. We're like the, you know,
Yeah.
I'm from the 70s. I started teaching in 72, and I had that master teacher. Doug would probably know that. And I was observed a walk-in, or it was a scheduled piece. We do the same thing. We watch our teachers continuously on what they're doing. We have content specialists that monitor the teachers, whatever core content that is. And so we're monitoring, and so we're constantly working with our teachers. Again, some of this is new. There's some baby boomers in our company that this is a new format for them. And so we work with them extensively on how to utilize Zoom and Canvas, and how to talk to students online vis-a-vis being in a brick and mortar component.
Great.
Not just observing the teachers, you know, that has kind of a negative connotation sometimes, but also you can see different people, you know, department heads and everything can see who is not on Zoom, and if they should be on Zoom and maybe a teacher struggling to log in, they can address that immediately. Instead of waiting on that person to reach out.
Right, so you've got kind of 2 different things here. The mention of Lightspeed, that's a internet filter, so that's going to be handled at whatever district level that your technology department handles traffic coming in and out of your main distribution facility, or circuits, or however you're set up. So we utilize Lightspeed in our district for that purpose, and you know, we whitelist and blacklist different websites and things like that. We're a one-to-one district, and so we have a managed program. So every student is issued a laptop, a Dell laptop, and we have management software on there that actually restricts their access to, even at home on their home network, they still have to route through our county office in order to get out So all the restrictions are still on there. That's a pretty high priority for our district, is security and things like that. And one controversy that kind of came up this year, we're a Microsoft shop as well, so we've kind of moved to using Teams, which is Microsoft's version of Zoom, basically. And so Teams has been great, but it's just a tool, just like Zoom and everything else is. There's lots of tools out there. My program has been using Zoom for quite a while. We've used a couple different products in the past. As long as you have a district license for any of these things and you're not using one of the free versions, you do have a lot of security that you can set up from your district license itself. So you can keep your students and faculty secure in those areas. But we had some teachers who were signing up for the free Zoom sessions and kind of heading off into the sunset with their students, and that was not best practice. They weren't recording. We in terms of our teachers at Rockdale Virtual, we record every single session as a requirement. And just like you wouldn't go into a classroom and be one-on-one with a student without the door being open. We recommend, if you have a one-on-one session, it has to be recorded. So we record everything. So we have a quality assurance checkpoint that we go through with all of those things, and we share all of our artifacts from the recordings back out to the students in case a student couldn't make a class session, things like that. And obviously our learning management system is going to keep all records of down to the minute of what they've done, how they've logged in and things like that. So you've got an instructional piece and a technology piece. Sometimes it's hard to get the instructional side to talk to the technology side in our district, but we work hard at it for sure.
Those are all important points of a virtual program too, the technology and the tools that you're using. So great for bringing those up. Thank you. One more question here. We have a few minutes before we're going to wrap this up. Ted, do you provide professional development for teachers looking to teach online? And if so, is there a training course that you can recommend? I think that this is probably one of the biggest things on people's minds right now, is how do you move from teaching in brick and mortar to being a virtual teacher? So is there anything out there that can support teachers?
Very apropos during this pandemic time. I've had 8 of my 10 clients ask this for the following reason. I've been told that many of their senior teachers, the baby boomers, some will not want to come back. They're taking their retirement. And then many do not want to go back into the brick and mortar facility because of, they might be under one of the 4 or 5 challenges of going back into a school district. So yes, Proximity Learning has just developed a virtual learning component that we're offering to districts currently. It'll be a 10-to-1 ratio where we work with those 10 teachers 3 to 4 hours. They have to pick and choose their hours that they can log on throughout the day. And it's a very nominal fee that we're offering districts. And I've already had 3 takers sign up for this, primarily in Louisiana. And then I have one here in Southern California. They have 15 of their teachers that want to continue teaching, but need to learn how to do it on a virtual format. So we're working with those school districts right now. I believe we're going to have multiples of our 125 clients that want to do this throughout. And I'm sure people like Benjamin will be working with them and how to do this, because that's what we're going to be assigning teachers like Benjamin to teach those teachers who want to do this. So yes.
All right, you got my number.
I do.
And Doug, do you guys do the same thing with your teachers? You have some type of professional development so that they're excellent virtual teachers as well?
Yes, we do. And we've had one in place for quite a while. If we hire a teacher to come in and teach for us, they have to literally go through an endorsement process where they're taking multiple classes in order to qualify to teach or be in my pool of instructors. Now, because of a lot of the things that have happened, the whole district, and as we said before, not every student is, advisement-wise should be an online learner. Well, every district is now everybody's an online learner, and a lot of our teachers and students, found themselves in very deep water and tried to tread water. So our teachers are very strong in that area, and so we're trying to leverage their experience, literally a decade or more of experience, with the other teachers in our district. And so we're going through our professional learning department and trying to offer those sessions and things like that. So we're doing some things internally to develop. Georgia Virtual School, which is our state learning institution, has released some free modules, if you will, that you can import into a learning management system, or you can use theirs. And so I think I don't think there's a short answer to this, except that there's a lot out there. You have to pick and choose kind of what is important to you and what follows the mission of your district and what people are comfortable with and are going to get on board and buy in with and be fully consistent and supportive. But it's great that companies like Proximity is doing this, and I think eDynamics has got some things out there as well. So I think we definitely all need to take advantage of it, because we're all this isn't going away in terms of online learning. And as we've said in the district, this isn't what we're doing right now as a district is not true online learning. This is emergency learning. This is, we've grown into this. This is not the way it really should be designed, intentionally brought forward. And we need to differentiate between those two things, because you can get a really bad taste in your mouth for online learning if this is your only experience. It can be done well, it can be done right, and not everybody is going to do it right the first time. And so, I think that's an important point to make too, is that people may start comparing this experience that they've had this semester or during this time to be that is online learning. Well, it's not. It's not the way it should be.
I appreciate you saying that, Doug. Thank you.
Right. I recommend too that if you're looking for support for districts, reach out to your education service agency. I'm part of, in Pennsylvania, we're called intermediate units. That's our job. Our job is to support school districts in implementing anything new. And a lot of us have the experience to teach teachers on how to be online learners. In New York, they're called BOCES or RICs. Education service centers are different in every state, but I suggest you reach out to them first. They'll be able to point you in the next direction. There's a lot of them doing Google Classroom instruction. All kinds of things are out there suddenly, and we're ready and willing to help you, because we know what the fall, it's so unknown. Let's get your teachers ready for the unknown and for the fall. So reach out to your education service agencies. That's our job to help you.
Awesome. Thank you guys. We're at the top of the hour here. I appreciate each one of you joining us to be a panelist in this session today. Your expertise and information was very welcomed. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.